We want to welcome you guys back. We are here and excited to be with you guys. My name is Aaron, and we are joined today by Megan
Good morning.
and Pastor Mark. How's it going, guys?
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, we're excited. We got a fun conversation today, and I think we'll just kind of jump right in. We have been talking on Sundays for the last 5 weeks about Sabbath and how Sabbath is really counter our culture here in the United States. A lot of us have kind of grown up in these rhythms where we define rest as a certain set of things. We don't see rest as restorative, and we certainly don't necessarily connect it to like our faith and a relationship with God, when actually Sabbath and rest and restoration are some very core themes to who God is and the gospel and things like that. So, Mark, why don't you kind of walk us through the sermon this past weekend and get us started?
Yeah, it's almost like from a cultural perspective, before I start really talking about the sermon, we like jam all of our rest into like one little zone. Like we like save it up and then try to like binge on it like it's a Netflix show.
Well, I mean, speaking of Netflix, we even think of like Netflix as rest. Like, yeah, you know,
right.
like,
Actually, it was really funny. We were watching a show and it was like, I don't know, it was like 6 episodes of something. And, we got to the end of it. We were like, oh man, now what are we going to watch? Like when the kids go to bed, like we generally watch like an hour of something after the kids go to bed.
Yeah.
And generally I'll fall asleep during anyways. And will give me a recap at the end of it, like film in. And
it was Tiger King too. Wasn't it?
No, it was Jack Reacher. So it's pretty great. I don't know. I mean, if you're not into like the violence and the language and stuff, I totally understand. But
the naked man.
Yeah. Yeah. There's one tough scene, which, but anyways, so we'll get to the end of that and we're like, what are we going to watch now? We don't have like, I mean, there's a million things, but like making decisions kind of hard, but I think like we binge our rest. So we like go like 6 weeks of like really hard work. And then we try to take like a week of vacation and like, that's great. Taking a week of vacation is great. You can grow closer in relationships. Like I recommend doing that, but also you should be resting on a weekly basis and then resting on a daily basis. That was kind of the thought process here for the whole sermon series. And it was interesting what Bjorn said last week, because he was saying, I talked to people about this and most of the people say there's no way we could do that. They have this like philosophy, like that's unattainable for us to
too much going on.
Yeah. How am I going to take a whole day off? And they think of all the conflicts that'll come up and they just get rid of the idea to begin with, and that's why this is countercultural, because if you decide to do this, you're going to be living in a way that's completely opposite of what the world tells you is appropriate.
It's work. You have to be intentional.
It's work.
It's work.
It's so funny too how these themes and this conversation, I think, happens in culture outside of religion. I heard from someone, and I've heard this before, like there are companies out there that are working some of these concepts into like benefits packages. So I heard from someone that their company every quarter gives them 8 hours of burnout time. And so like do the simple math. It's basically your company saying like, here's 2 days a year if you're getting burnt out. And my response to that is like, thank you for 2 days a year.
That's not gonna
you know what
anything.
I mean? Like,
yeah.
Throw me a bone and give me like a day a quarter, maybe. Like that's not that much time. Like
I think it was Sweden that just started going to a 4-day work week and 6-hour days instead of 8. So like knocking that down, that work week down,
moving to Sweden.
It's an interesting thought.
And I was like mad. This just recently happened. I guess I won't say the name of the company, although if you know my wife, you know where she works. But
dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, Presbyterian Homes. I mean, I won't out them. Their policy is you have to be sick for 3 days and out of work before you can use any of your sick time.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to use PTO, regular PTO time, and they give you extra sick time on top of that, but you can't use it until day 4 of a sickness. And I was like, they've just incentivized no one to ever take a day off because they're sick. And also like that feels like a really bad idea during like a pandemic that's still winding down. And like, so you have people like struggling on their way in because they know I got to use my PTO for the stuff I've already planned for. Or if they have a kid who's sick and is at home, now they can't use a sick day. They have to use a PTO day. And also Marty's never gotten to use one. She's been there like 2.5 years. should never use a sick day. I'm like, has anyone in their HR department considered like how dumb this rule is?
Well, it just kind of gets to like how companies maybe like in their HR departments are feeling some sort of pressure to address these things, but like the way they address it is almost it's like backwards. It's counterintuitive.
I'm sure they had people use all their sick days every year, and probably at the worst times, and probably times when they weren't sick, like they took a mental health day.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like your HR department should go, great. We want everyone to take all of the time that we've given them every single year. Like don't go over it.
But boy, if you have those 2 burnout days.
So that's one of the interesting, if I can step back and talk about being a boss for a second, one of the interesting things that I've had to think about with HR, given that we now have 5 employees and 4 part-time employees, it's like the one thing that I can give to people is flexibility. And I try not to even count. I mean, I'm sure we're keeping track of that somewhere, but like, I don't care. Like if somebody needs time off, they get it. And if somebody's sick, don't come in, and it's like if somebody needs like we get through a tough season, this is what happened at Christmas time for Natalie. I'm like, we scheduled a worship leader for the first weekend of the year on purpose, knowing she would be, pretty burned out after Christmas. So like, doing things like that is kind of fun because, you get to try to like take care of the people around, and also like we force each other to take our vacations. Like we don't carry over time from year to year. We use time, and it's like I don't even care how much you take. Like take it. I'm sure there's a rule about how much you're supposed to get. I don't care about any of that. Like I can give you flexibility. You're part-time employee. Like
unless it's 3 weeks right before fall kickoff, then that's not.
Or we said yes.
Got it.
Aaron decided
but it was
to leave
also like, don't ever do that again.
Aaron decided to leave for all of August.
I mean, it was maybe not the best time to be gone.
There are times of the year where you should be more present.
It won't.
But
happen.
you had family reunions. It wasn't stuff that you chose to do. You needed to go to. So it's fine.
Special circumstances.
But I mean, it's fun to be a boss and to think about rhythm differently and take care of people. It's like, we're going to get our work done, get your work done. Yeah. And we're going to, try to say yes to everything if we can.
Well, it's been really fun to try and create the atmosphere here that we haven't had elsewhere. Or maybe we've had little pieces of it in different jobs, but like, there are so many things where it's like, well, every experience I've had around this has been terrible in the past. So that's, I want to do it like that.
Right.
So how can we do it better?
Yeah. I also think the workplace is shifting. This would be a whole nother conversation, but with millennials and Z, like I think the workplace needs a shift. Some of you probably roll your eyes at that comment because you're like, I had to do all this crap. They should have to do all this crap. And it's like, well, maybe boomers and X, because they pretty much just want the approval of boomers, maybe they didn't give us a great example of what it meant to have work-life balance.
I mean, it's a pretty safe assumption that anytime there's an issue, you just point at Gen X and be like, you guys start off really fun and carefree, and now you're just kind of a pain in the butt. Like,
no, I think these are some of the things that I think COVID helped highlight for the better, like helping realize people can actually work from home. Now, I will say, I have worked from home in the past, and you have to be good about it. Like, you have to set yourself good boundaries and create space and all that. But like,
that's why I don't do it.
Or I mean, you can work remotely. Maybe it's a coffee shop.
Yes, right.
And
it's such a hard time working.
There are some meetings that could just be an email. They don't need to be a Zoom call. Like, I think we're realizing some of these things, and I think the work atmosphere is evolving a little bit, and realizing that people can be remote and you can still.
Yeah, I think that's a huge silver lining to the pandemic. Is it's forced all of us to rethink what actually is important when it comes to like being present in person. And then it's also like forced us to be like, yeah, I need to have a little bit more balance and things like that too.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do it Jesus's way, it's going to be very countercultural.
Yeah.
It's going to mean that you have some time in your day where you're connecting with Christ, and a 24-hour period a week that you protect and try to rest in. And then it means that you're going to be regularly, one of the sermons I didn't really get to in this would have been that the Jews took regular times to have festivals where they took off a week or two here or there. And it was like in regular intervals throughout the year. And they were always focused, like they were celebrating a specific thing. They were celebrating the liberation from slavery. They were celebrating Passover, like So,
I mean, we do that too. Like, we celebrate Groundhog's Day, and we have
American versions of this,
Yeah.
and we have Christian versions of this,
Yeah.
like with Christmas. And I guess Easter really doesn't, it's not as much of a season.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, the July 4th seems to be like a huge one.
Spring break time.
Yes.
There's usually a summer vacation in there.
But like,
Stay fair.
how many of us are, we probably do this with Christmas, but how many of us are taking that extra time to do something spiritual?
To be intentional spiritually. Yep.
Which is what was beautiful about what the Jews were doing.
Yep.
Their regular stuff was like remembering the most important things, which I think Thanksgiving, you can get there easily. Christmas, you can get there easily. New Year's, probably don't. July 4th, probably don't. I mean, we don't really want to mix, nationalism and Christianity anyways.
No, don't do that.
It's a tough one. So, just make that a national holiday, not not a Christian one. So I do think that there's more there to be talked about from a regular celebration perspective. But this week's sermon was really mostly focused on the idea that like there are, and I did come at it from the perspective that there are two types of people. There are rule followers and there are contextual rule followers. If I'm going to be like as generous as possible.
If you need examples of this, I'm a rule follower.
Right.
Mark is the other one.
Yes. So
I'm the contextual rule follower that always gets caught. So I'm right in the middle.
That's right. We were talking about the no turn on red sign at the Little Canada exit off 35E. If you haven't ever pulled off there, you're not missing much. There's a new Caribou there. There's that steakhouse. But that's where I get off to take my kids to school. I go down the frontage road, and there's like 6 entrances to the intersection at that. There's 2 lights right next to each other. It's a very confusing intersection. I understand why the no turn on red sign is there. No turn on red because there's a couple times a day where you can create more traffic by turning and create a dangerous situation. But there are also times a day where the entire intersection is completely empty. And those times may line up with when I'm dropping my kids off at school. And I may be running late. This is a completely hypothetical situation. And I may have to have I may have to make the choice whether I enter the intersection and continue on to take my kids to school or wait 4 minutes while it goes through 6 different lights to allow me to do something that's completely safe the entire time, right? So there's rule followers because Megan would
wait and not go because that's what the sign says.
Correct. And then there's people like me who would wait most of the time, but then sometimes would go, oh, not hurting anyone. And I'm not saying lie. If I got pulled over and the cop asked me, why'd you do that? I'd be like, I'm running late and I want to get my kids to school. And there's no cars in the, and so I deserve a ticket and that's fine. You can give me one. I would just, own up to it. And then there's people like Aaron
who in 2007 was at that intersection. Maybe the first time in that intersection, I totally saw the sign and I totally turned right on red. And I even craned my neck, was looking for a cop and didn't see anyone. The intersection was empty. I turned and my car wasn't even fully in the intersection and there were cherries behind me. and he was like not a nice cop. He was very upset with me. Yeah. And it was not a cheap ticket. I thought like in my head, I was like, oh, it's just turn red on stoplight, like moving violation. It won't be as much as like a speeding ticket. No, it was like several $100s.
Did you learn your lesson?
Well, yeah, because I never turned on. I'm not at that intersection often, but like whenever I'm there, I never turn. I'm like, I am going to wait. And if I'm in a line of cars and there's several in front of me, I'm like, oh, don't do it. Yeah. Don't do it. He's gonna like materialize out of somewhere and get you. Like, and it's almost always like on my way to the house board shop or something like that.
Christians are so bad at breaking rules. Like we always get in trouble.
I've been talking to my nephew Mason about this, about, our actions have consequences. He's 6. This is what we've been talking about. And he would say, that was your consequence.
God got me. It's true.
So there's some of us who would be rule followers all the time. And then some of us who would be contextual rule followers. And I probably turn there 2 or 3 times. If I'm not in a rush, I don't. If there's any traffic at all, I don't. It's like only in the perfect situation would I even consider it. And sometimes I have, and I'm lucky to not have gotten a ticket. But understanding why the rule exists, I think, is the point. Like, I will generally want to know why they're asking me to do that. And it makes perfect sense to me because there's times where you can't calculate all the possibilities of 6 intersections coming together or whatever, 6 entrances to an intersection come together. And then there's other times where it's a ghost town and there's no possibility of anything bad happening. You'll be the only one in the intersection for the 2.5 seconds that it takes to turn. So when it comes to the rules for Sabbath, I've had a couple people ask me questions like, am I doing this right? And what is this supposed to look like? And
you answer with a question.
Well, what people want is, here's a set of rules.
Yeah.
And what is frustrating about this conversation is that there isn't a set of rules. There's a set of guidelines. There's a set of principles, right? You have to understand why God gave us this gift and why he wants us to practice it and what the point of it was to make the value decisions on how to celebrate this or how to do it.
Yeah. I think people want an equation. A plus B equals C every time in any weather, in any circumstance. But it's just not that simple.
I mean, I kind of was thinking that, you know, there's like this wives' tale around like McDonald's coffee and how like the reason it says caution hot coffee on the cup is because at some point there was a lawsuit, someone burned themselves and, you know, probably won, and now McDonald's has to put that warning on their cup. It's similar to like rules of Sabbath. Like, we don't necessarily know why they're that way, but the assumption we can make is that God put those rules in place for our benefit, like to protect us, to help us, you know, to steer us back to
and Jesus straight up broke the rules often, the rules that the Jews had, and pretty much looked them in the face and was like,
what you gonna do about it?
What just happened? Did I get struck down dead? Like, do you think God's upset about this? Like, I think you guys are missing the forest for the trees here.
Yep.
Yeah. I think anytime you get dogmatic, yes, you're missing the point. Okay, so why did God do this? What was his purpose? What was the point of it? Right. So then, you know, we kind of launched into the conversation about that. And I think I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking through at least one of these specifically. But so we started with the idea that Sabbath's a gift for you. And that principle guides us. You have to step back and say, I do not exist to serve the Sabbath. The Sabbath is here to provide restoration for me. This is what God intended for it to be. The second idea was to pick a day and prepare for it. That if you, for instance, if you pick Sunday, but you don't do any of the chores on Saturday, you don't go to the grocery store, you don't get the running around town done, you don't, you know, whatever schedule stuff to be done on Saturday, then you're not going to enjoy your Sabbath on Sunday because you're going to have all this undone stuff and you're going to have anxiety around getting things done before the week. And so it's like almost like preparing for Sabbath allows you to fully enjoy it. So taking the time to do that, and then keeping a 24-hour day. So like, even if you have a weird schedule that jumps around, if you want to do this well, you kind of need to keep it in a 7-day interval, and you need to keep a specific day as your Sabbath, because otherwise it ends up moving around. You end up getting, you know, 2 weeks between Sabbaths. You end up not doing it. You're out of the rhythm of it, and then it's gone. You know, and then you find yourself fighting to get back in your rhythm. The third one was be accountable. The idea that like we go through seasons where we're going to do less Sabbath than others, and I even talked about our rhythm. You know, we have less Sabbath probably during September, less during December, less during April when we have Easter. But we have more. We have more time to do it in the summertime and more time to do it in the in-between seasons. And how we often talk about like taking care of ourselves in those times. We maybe even cancel meetings, or we maybe give everybody a week off. We close the office for a whole week. We like force people to like take a little bit more Sabbath during those times to like, and that's accountability. And people say, hey, you know, and there's times like, let's just say you're going to be a doctor and you need to do residency. You're going to have 3 years where you don't have any Sabbath. Like, that's just going to happen. You're going to be working so hard. And at the end of that, somebody needs to tell you, hey, it's time to power down. Like, time to get into a rhythm that makes sense. Like, you can't just go and go and go and go and go. You're going to die. You know, you're going to burn yourself out. So having accountability is really important. And then that's where I thought we could maybe focus a little bit, because I think this is a big aha for a lot of people, is focus on restoration and worship. And I think sometimes we need to even redefine worship to really understand how to worship correctly, or how to, not correctly is a terrible word to say, but like how to worship well for each individual, how to come up with ways to connect with God that, because I think a lot of people think worship is probably just singing or praying or going to church.
Mm-hmm.
It's maybe like singing stuff on KTIS or having KTIS on in the background while we do stuff in the garage. Not what I'm saying. Not what worship is. That's a part. There's corporate worship and going to church. Prayer is obviously a piece of worship. Singing is a part of worship. But that's to understand how you were created, the gifts you were given, the passion you have, and how God made you will help you find ways to worship that are outside of that normal thought when we say the word worship. Is that making sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we talked about a whole bunch of different types of people, and I kind of like challenge you to find the kind that you are, right? So, I mean, I can talk a little bit about enthusiasts because that's me.
And this is from a book by Gary Thomas called Sacred Pathways. These are 9. Somebody could argue that there are more. These are the 9 that he looked at.
There are definitely more. Yes.
So this is not an exhaustive list.
No.
By
Yeah,
any
I think
means.
the 10th one that is often missed is the Hungarist. And so it's like someone who eats Sabbath through food. Yeah.
Again, our sixth
I mean,
value.
Can be food around other people. There's community. I'll argue that one for you.
I'm a solo foodist.
Well, that's
Solo
John Mark
foodist.
Comer in his book. He talks about making sure that you do slow food on Sabbath, like that you
Pizza.
No.
Oh,
Like you do slow food. So you cook, you spend time like making a great meal. Like he talks about his wife really loves to do that. So she'll make a sauce or make a stew or have meat that's like in the crock pot
smoking something.
Yeah, right. Smoking something for all those like, middle-aged dads out there who need to use their smoker.
Yeah.
So, grill some stuff.
Do some slow food.
Yeah.
Right. Not fast food.
We have to put a little care into it.
Yeah. And take care of it. Go slow, relax while you're cooking it. Hopefully you're enjoying that.
Think about what God provided for you.
Yeah.
Before you jump in here, Mark, I just had 2 quick thoughts.
Yeah, go for it.
One of the things that has really stuck out to me in this series, and I don't know why my mind keeps going here, but I keep thinking about like how I typically have defined rest. I feel like there's this really strong tie to like the notion of vacation. And most of the time, and Jess knows this because we talk about this, most of the time we actually take vacations, like go somewhere, I come back more tired, more burnt out than I was before I left. And part of that's just because we have kids, and so much of what we do when we travel is centered around kids and kids' activities, and those things are just naturally exhausting. Yeah, like still fun. I had a great time, but I'm just tired.
Yep.
So I'm trying, like one of the things that I'm being impacted by through this series and really thinking critically about Sabbath for me and for our family is I don't want to be tired when we do something fun, so it's trying to find ways to be restorative in that sense. And then the other thing, and this kind of goes back to what you were saying a few minutes ago, I heard a sermon once, it was a pastor talking about Sabbath. And one of the things that he talked about that I thought was really interesting was he even said, like, look at how God designed our bodies. Like we have built-in Sabbath on a 24-hour cycle where we sleep. And we don't just sleep because it feels good and we like it. We sleep because our bodies need it to like clear out toxins, to heal, so our mind can like reset and be prepared for the coming day. Like we have Sabbath built into our DNA and our biology. So why is this such a hard concept when it comes to just life in general? Like we should just look at how our days go. Like we get up, we're alive, we do stuff, we get tired, we go home, we sleep for hopefully 8 to 10 hours. Like, so when we're having this part of the conversation, talking about the different ways that we worship and things like that, like I think it's just a really important thing to remember that we're not just saying this as like another activity, a spiritual activity that can draw us closer to God. It does, and it can, but it's getting back to like God's original intent for how we are to operate in this context.
Yeah, so that's good. I had that written down somewhere in my notes and making a name of one of my sermons. Should have. That's a great point.
Well, I think just to speak to your point there, we're tired after vacations. I had 2 reasons popped in my head right away. One, because we don't take them enough. And so we try and compact so much rest into a 4-day period. 2, because we're not resting the right ways individually. Like you have vacation time, and so you're focused on your kids having a good time. I don't know about you. I think we're kind of similar in this. That's not restful for me. Like running around doing kids' activities at a park. Like I want to be like sat somewhere with a book.
We're already talking about Disney for 2023, and I'm like just killing now. Like,
but yeah, so that's the like rub is like you take a vacation as a family of 4,
it's like a grandparent thing,
and now
like,
all of a sudden
you're actually gonna take the kids. Like,
no, like we'd be going with like Jess's sister and her family, and like her parents. But it's like I'm like I'll do a couple rides, but like just find me a bench. Like
I'll be home base. I will hold the bags.
My parents took us, and I remember later on, I feel like I was like maybe 10 or 11. I think my parents later on, I asked them about that trip. I was like, you took us to Disney. It seemed like it was so expensive, and they're like, yes, it was very expensive. We paid that off over a long period of time. I was like, okay. Then I asked Marty, I was like, so did your parents ever take you to Disney? And she was like, no. I was like, oh, your parents didn't love you. That's the big joke in our house now, that your parents didn't love you.
Well, my parents didn't love me either, Marty. I haven't.
It turns out her parents were just like smart with their money.
Right. Yeah. I just didn't want to take on all that debt. My niece and nephew have been asking me, when do we get to go to Disney? Because some of their friends have gone, and the answer is not yet.
no, the smart answer is all right. Let's go Disney Plus.
So, and what's funny now is my parents live in Fort Myers, so
Yeah.
they've actually talked about like now they have money to be able to do whatever they they were like, hey, we could take you guys to Disney. I'm cool with that. Like if I'm getting the grandparents treatment, I can go again.
Get Mark a power chair.
Second time, yeah. Give me like.
So as we look at these 9 pathways, let's keep in mind. I mean, we're trying to build in that rhythm so that we're resting more often, so that we don't like try and gorge all of our rest all at once. I think will help us be more specific in our rest, so that it's actually restorative to us.
Yep. Yeah, and I like to break down your Sabbath into 3 areas to think about. One is just rest. Just stop doing stuff for some period of time. Sit somewhere.
Sleep in.
Take a nap. Like do something that's restful. Do something that's worshipful, right? So like a lot of people go to church on, and of course that's part of the Shabbat for the Jewish. The Jewish focus is Friday night, big Shabbat meal. Saturday go to synagogue together. Their rules are, even now, like currently, like turn off all communications, do absolutely no work, can't drive anywhere. They walk, and they can only walk so far. There's a lot of rules that they follow for Shabbat, but it includes going to synagogue on Saturday. And then the last one is more, I don't exactly have a word for it, but it's almost like what you would do to be productive on Sabbath. So it's like the kinds of things that bring you restoration that are work in some way. It could be work for someone, but it might not be work for you. The restorative activities that you come up with to do on Sabbath. So you have rest, you have worship, and you have restorative activities. I think that
what feeds you, like that heart passion that just like gives you life, or
right. So by the way, which one of those did the Vikings fall into for most people? Because I had somebody ask me this: can I watch football on Sabbath? And I said, for me, like watching football is restful. Like I'm generally sitting there relaxed. I'm like, if something big happens, I'm kind of excited about it, but I'm chill. However, if you're throwing things across the room and F-bombs and somebody told me they have to ride because they're watching their fantasy football on one screen, and they got the football game up, and he's like, one of my friends was like, yeah, I have to actually ride an exercise bike while I'm watching the Vikings or while I'm watching football because the energy that I have is just too much. And I'm like, that does not sound like Sabbath to me at all.
No, it doesn't sound like rest.
If anything, it sounds like idolatry, but I don't know. Maybe worship? I don't know. Like,
that's another podcast.
I wonder if he'll listen. So, but yeah, to me, it's like, is it a restorative activity? Is it rest? Is it worship?
Yeah.
Those would be the 3 things. So let's talk about worship.
Yep.
Because it's more than just singing and more than just praying and more than just being at church. All those things are great. If you could do all those 3 things, that'd be awesome. But also, like, what other ways do we worship? And I think it depends a lot on how you were designed and what your passions are.
Yeah.
So here's 9 possibilities for you. So think about who you are as we start talking about this. Enthusiasts, okay? People who love to go and be in worship. These are the ones that you don't have to warm up. When we start singing, they're singing at the top of their lungs. They're the ones that are throwing the hands around. I pulled down this video clip of I think it's Tim Hawkins. Is that right? He's like a Christian comedian.
Yeah.
Talking about the different ways that you put your hands up in worship. He's like, hold the TV. This is for people who are actually I don't even think they could see it. He's like he gives like a name to each one of like positions or whatever.
Field goal.
Yes, the field goal. The Hail Mary. Yep.
Uh-huh.
Which is that's a little too close. But this is somebody who worship and celebration are words that appeal to them.
Mm-hmm.
They're excited about it. They desire inspiration and they want to feel close to God when they are like inspired.
Mm-hmm.
So like corporate worship is a really big deal for somebody who's an enthusiast.
Yep.
Most enthusiasts are probably making sure they get to church
Mm-hmm.
and are there for the entire worship, like
Yep.
the music part of the service. I did have somebody tell me church is a bunch of crap. Like you just, you do all these songs to get an emotional response out of people. And then the pastor stands up there and he, just says like what his pet stuff is. And I was like, I don't know, man. Like,
it's a little cynical, bro.
Yeah, he's not an enthusiast. I can tell you that. And like, there's no emotional manipulation going on there. Like, it's not, I can 100% tell you, like, as someone who designs worship services, I've never considered emotional manipulation when I'm designing a worship service. So, and also we preach through passages. I'm not doing my pet stuff. Like, the passage tells us what to preach. Sorry, man. Like,
you should probably be sending this to that dude. People respond out of pain sometimes and whatever. So enthusiasts, I mean, get yourself to church. Like, you're probably going to be a little bit depressed on your Sabbath if you're not going to find yourself in corporate worship at some point. So, naturalists.
These are my people.
Oh, me too.
You want to do this one?
Sure. These are people who experience God out in nature, and just feel closest to him when they're around his creation. Some of my favorite times have been either in a deer stand at like 4 a.m, or sitting out
Mark
in a
is
duck
shaking
blind,
his head.
and just like, watching creation come to life around me. Go for a hike. It's just sitting in the woods quiet after it has snowed and just like listening to everything come to life as the sun comes up is just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I will go deer hunting just for that. And if I don't touch my gun all day, that's okay.
Sure.
I'm happy to sit in a stand and be quiet and just have some time with Jesus. Mark hates most of that idea. I know, but this is me.
Listen,
so
I like fat walks around lakes in the woods. I feel stuff when I'm in nature.
Yeah.
I did camp for a long time.
Yeah.
But
just not the deer.
I mean, if I stood in front of the Grand Canyon, I would certainly feel something like some sort of awe. I'm not like dead inside.
No, I'm not. Not what I'm saying.
But yeah, I mean, I'm out in nature. I'm inside. It's all the same to me.
Yeah.
It's great.
So for those of you who this is how you experience God or a way that you feel close to him, go for a walk. Grab your coffee in the morning and watch the sun come up if you're up in the morning anyways. Thinking with moms with little kids who might already be awake at 4:30 in the morning, and it's not enjoyable. Grab a cup of coffee, feed baby, watch sun come up. Like, just have a little peace there. Or watch the sun go down if you're a night person. Go out and look at the stars at night. Probably drive out of the cities to do that, to see them best. But
if you're an avid indoor enthusiast like Mark, then
I mean, I like everything.
I'm just joking.
I mean, there's been times in my life where I spent more time outside and really felt like that was a way to connect with God. And other times where I was like, I can't really walk. My feet are broken. I don't really want to go outside.
Yeah.
So
I think I'm very much a naturalist. I also think, and I'm learning this, I think I'm also a sensate as well.
Hit us with it.
Sensates appreciate beauty, art, and music. So this is probably why you would call me bougie.
I love that for you.
Okay, yeah, I love it for me too. You feel closest to God when listening to music, working with your hands, or viewing art or photography. I've kind of also had this thought too, like
you build too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, when I think about like life-giving activities, I enjoy building things, working on things. Like, it's part of the reason why I spent a lot of last summer at my in-laws' house building a retaining wall, is because not only is it like hard work, and there were times where I kind of loathed slightly, I also like I have this where I'm like, I kind of like this. You
Yeah.
get tired, you go home, and those are the nights when you feel like you have the best night's sleep. There's just something that brings me life to be able to create things.
Yeah.
To like have an idea in my head of what I want, like a shed to look like, and I build it, and it's like, great, that turned out better than what I imagined it. And so it's not only an appreciation for the aesthetic of it, it's also like using my hands and creating something like that too. So this says, you understand your role as an artist and pointing to God. I would say for me, it's not so much being an artist, it's being a builder, like to build something. Being creative in your daily life is.
But also, important. You made that cross that we put up, which is gorgeous.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are like, "Where'd that come? That's awesome!" Like, oh yeah, Aaron made that. Like, I can't make anything like that. Like, this is amazing.
Out of wood that he bought at Home Depot. It's
so
the cheapest wood possible.
Yeah, you crushed it, man.
It's pretty.
Yeah, I will never do this, but write your own worship song. Yeah. So I think like there's probably like multiple types of people that can be in this category.
Oh yeah,
I want to know what an Aaron written worship song would entail. Like, I just think that would be so fascinating.
Think of like the most rudimentary song, like Mary Had a Little Lamb, and then put new lyrics to it. That would probably be my worship song.
Jesus.
I've heard Macy do this. My nephew does this all the time too. 100%. Like they'll just pick some random tune they've heard from something and start singing.
Yeah. What what genre would your worship song be in? Like 90s rock?
No, probably 90s hip hop.
Yeah.
90s hip hop.
So we need that. We need one of those.
But yeah, these are the people who want to create, they want to make something with their hands. We have so many creative people in pursuit.
1,
whether it's
2, 3 into the 4. Hear that knocking? It's Jesus at the door.
Oh yes, now we're talking.
All right, but I think like it's not just art. The sense it's
happening? Hold on. This requires
don't do it. Please don't. Oh,
the Academy appreciates your work there.
Please don't.
All right. They told me don't use the sound panel because people leave podcasts when people start getting silly.
I'm about to leave this podcast. Sorry. Because
what were you saying? Sorry.
No, I think to like it's important to differentiate and understand that it's not just like artistic people, like musicians and artists. It's also people who are creative in all areas.
Right.
People who work with their hands, build things like that too. So
all right. Next one is also me. This is definitely one I feel, so if you're this one, as an activist, you want to be part of a social or evangelistic cause. You feel close to God, taking faith risks, and you see growing dependence on him while striving for justice and against evil. And some of the recommendations are: discover why justice matters, incorporate talking about Jesus into your activism. Absolutely. I mean, for me, doing activities for people in need and serving the cause of justice on behalf of Jesus and his kingdom is the kind of thing that brings
just fires you up.
Yeah, brings restoration to my soul. And I think there are never times where I feel better about being a pastor or better about our church than after we've just finished an activity where we've done something that has improved the lives of some people in the name of Christ.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that one's a pretty clear one. And by the way, this one would kind of go against Sabbath in some ways because people would say, well, you're out there working. And sometimes it's like you're saying, you could do physical labor, but it's bringing you restoration. You know what I mean? To feel like you're caring for people or serving the cause of justice or filling someone's need on behalf of Jesus. And I'll even go further than this, like, personal evangelism for me is one of these things that like I take the risk all the time. I'm always asking the Holy Spirit to illuminate who to talk to, what to say. I'm one of those weirdos that offers to pray for people in public just randomly. I kind of have I learned this a long time ago. I'm trying to think of who it was that modeled this for me. There was definitely somebody. But this idea of like, if I'm having a conversation and connecting with somebody, to just ask, hey, what's like something I could pray for you about? And then generally people will be like, what? And then they'll kind of like answer the question. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess like my uncle's having surgery, or like, hey, my grandma's in the hospital right now. Or like sometimes it's personal. And then to do it right then, to say, hey, well, is it okay if I just pray for you right now?
Yeah.
Hey, Greg Speck. That's probably who did it.
No, definitely not Greg Speck. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was the guy who Chad, oh boy, what's his name? He runs Come and Live, which is like a music production deal where he works with a lot of Christian bands and stuff. Just somebody I spent a little bit of time around. But anyway, it's just this idea that like there's ministry happening out there all over the place, and there's this like when you walk away from praying for somebody, you've just communicated to them, and I do communicate it in the moment, like that you value prayer and Christ, that you think they're worth paying attention to, that they have value to God. Like those are all things that you get to affirm to that person in that moment. They think you're crazy, but sometimes
they can think you're
that's
crazy.
what breaks through the monotony of every single
sure.
day. So
Chad Johnson.
yes, there you go.
Not Ocho Cinco.
That guy's amazing. I spent like literally like a day with him, and I was like, I got to change everything I do about my life.
Yeah.
I thought maybe it was the Love Does guy, the author. Who was that?
Is that Bob Goff?
Yes.
I don't know anything about Bob.
He gives hugs.
Yeah. Anyways, so I just go around and we'll do that. To me, that's activism.
Yep.
It fits into that. That's one of the ways I work.
And in this, I see pastors in this. I see missionaries in this. So I think,
but let's not limit it.
No.
A lot of times people are like,
I don't
that's
mean
just
that.
for the crazy, like professional Christian.
Nope.
As Aaron loves to bring up.
We are professional.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Next one. Traditionalists. Traditionalists are drawn to God through ritual, symbol, and sacrifice. You need something tangible to do to draw close to God. The recommendations are make prayer a priority, find ways to incorporate traditions and rituals into your life, and learn about traditions and rituals in the Bible, and develop new Christian habits.
Oh, Mark, come on, dude.
Mark is gagging across the table.
Yeah.
But I think, so I grew up in a traditional Baptist church, but a lot of we didn't do a lot of, what's the word
You know
I'm
who
trying
this
to think
is?
of?
This is Bobby.
Yeah.
She does a lot of this.
Yeah.
The liturgy.
Yes,
like
liturgy.
That.
That's what I'm
she
trying
really
to think of.
appreciates all that stuff.
And I have a spot in my heart for that. Having worked in several different denominations that are, in many ways very different, I've had some really awesome moments where like you can incorporate some of those traditional things or liturgy or whatever it is, and it can, be very fruitful spiritually.
Yeah. And I'm definitely, I've often thrown out the baby with the bathwater for sure. And having Bobby around has really challenged us to think more, like even as we were doing Christmas, we were talking about Advent season and doing the candles and having like a rhythm to it. And, she was advocating for that stuff, and it was like, Christmas season needs to feel a little bit traditional. This is good. This is going to help people worship. This is going to connect people to something deeper. There is a desire to connect yourself to the historical church, like to not just be on an island in this age, but to connect to something that's like way bigger than you. So
and I think it's not
that way. I kind of get it.
It's not like connecting to like old traditions or liturgies or whatever those things are. It's also like saying you can create new traditions. You can create new Christian habits.
Yep.
I worked at a church for 4+ years where I had to wear the black robe and the stole and the vestments and all those things. I ain't never doing that ever again. It's real sweaty under there, just so you know.
Oh man.
Because it's not like you can have like a pair of board shorts on underneath or something. It's like you're wearing like your normal clothes and you're essentially wearing like a ski suit while you're up on stage. It's no fun.
I can't with this. Can you imagine him in that?
Yeah.
It'd just be amazing.
Trying really hard not to.
Did you have like a Flavor Flav pendant that came down? Like that's what I would do.
No, I mean.
But yeah, I think it's, as
only half of our audience laughed at that because
as we look
who's
at
Flavor Flav,
like why we do things, I think that's helping us understand like some of these traditions, they can go by the wayside. We do them, because somebody told us to.
Can I be real specific about that? Like any tradition from like the 90s or 80s can go by the wayside. From like the 1890s and 1880s, those ones are the good ones. We'll keep those. Yeah, even like older than that, we'll keep those.
So you don't want to put like the Christian flag next to the American flag on stage?
Yeah, or shout to the Lord key change. I mean, that gives me all the feels. I'm gonna be honest, all the feels. But it's okay to put it away. I was really
great at that key change.
It's okay to put it away. It's all right. We are not all Darlene, whatever her name is.
Sandy Patty. Yeah.
No, Darlene Check. Yeah. So.
Yep.
Shout to
all right, the next one. Mark want to do this one?
Yeah.
Caregivers.
Yeah, caregivers. Also not me. You love God best by loving people. You feel close to God when serving the poor, hosting people in your home, and helping with a church event. Actually, probably is a little bit me.
I was
The
just gonna
caregiver
say.
word is kind of like throwing me off a little bit. And then so the questions about it are the recommendations. How can you love by faith? Ask yourself how you can serve someone today. Study what the Bible has to say about Christian and good deeds. Actually, you could study history about what Christians and good deeds kind of like study the plagues and what Christians did during the plagues and how Christians were medical treatment options for most of the centuries before we had real medicine, how they educated people when, during times when that was not a thing.
Our academic institutions and like our hospital, medical institutions, those were all born out of Christian.
Yep. Even our medical symbols, the serpent with the staff with the serpent wrapped around it is a medical symbol, but it comes straight out of the Bible.
And the barber one, I'm just joking. That's not Christian.
Well, and also like if you see the Red Cross, right? The Red Cross is doesn't look like a cross exactly. Like it doesn't have the longer side to it, but that's just a symbol that came out of Christian. Anyways, if you're a caregiver, you're looking to care for other people or love other people. You're probably the one who's like, so-and-so's having a hard time. Like I got everything I need to drop off a hot dish of some sort. But also, I mean, serving the poor, hosting people in your home. I feel like that's something that you can really enjoy on Sabbath.
Yep.
Have people over, cook that slow food.
Yep.
Enjoy an amazing meal, open up a bottle of wine, create Sabbath for them without them even knowing.
Yep.
Right. Create a relaxing, incredible atmosphere in your home. I mean, that's like there's a hosting thing there that brings you joy to have people over, and I think Marty and I are, I don't know, probably not exactly on the same page as far as like how much anxiety she may feel having people come over or how much anxiety I may feel, but we both determined that we want to use our home and have people over and in it. And we've filled it all the time. And I think what we've done as we've gotten older is just gotten more comfortable with things being the way they are, like not having to like clean like your mother-in-law's coming. You know what I mean? Like it's just good. It's not
your
good.
House is lived in.
This house is filthy.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's fine, but it's more like we also don't want it to be a drag when people come over that like we had to work for 2 days to get everything ready.
Yeah. I have a friend who I think would just be overjoyed to 7 days a week have like a different family in her house for the whole evening, like to cook for them and just provide space for them to like feel like they belong. And that may not be everybody's thing. That's not my thing. Having somebody in my house 7 days a week would drive me nuts. But it's really cool. And you can see those people. You're like the first one to jump in when somebody needs something or to host.
Well, that was part of Bjorn's rhythm, as he was talking about last week. Like they have somebody over almost every weekend for Shabbat dinner. Right. That's what they're calling it. So
we had a really great conversation yesterday too, as a staff about not being caregivers, but just caring for people. And it's something that I think our church has done really well, but we want to try and find ways to do more, And so little foreshadowing, keep an ear or eye out for that as well in the coming weeks.
We're going to work on our prayer care team.
Yeah.
And we're going to kind of create more of a organic way of seeking out people who need prayer, connecting with people during services. And
but exciting in that it's like, it's already something that we do well. I would say it's a strength, but it's like we recognize that just because it's a strength doesn't mean we don't need to like think about it. Like we need
I also
always
think
do more.
It's easier to be a strength because of the size right now. And if we got to 300 or 350 or whatever in our future, it just gets harder and harder. So having those I don't know, sort of planned out pathways in place will make the difference.
Next, done. Next one, intellectuals. This is totally not me.
Whatever. You love this one.
No, you experience God best with your mind. Oh, it is me. Yes, totally. Just realized that. You love to study and have a need to learn new things about God. I love to teach. As someone who went to seminary, did not quite finish. I love to tease the like academic, like spiritualists who think they're just smarter than you and know everything. They know scripture backwards. I affectionately call them the beard strokers because they just think they're so smart.
Come on.
Yeah. But I think maybe a better way of thinking about this is not being like an academic. It's more of being like someone who loves to learn and wants to go deeper in their faith. And that is restful. It provides you like more bandwidth. It's not stressful. It doesn't take up energy. It gives you energy, if that makes sense.
Yes. There's a lot of people out there that want to keep the conversation. This is the same conversation I had with my friend who was like, the church is emotional and you're just manipulating people and the pastor is saying what he wants to say and everybody falls behind the pastor and the pastor is, and I was like, okay, I don't know, man. But yeah, he's like, oh, I just like reading and like watching stuff and like learning things and like having deep conversations. And I was like, yeah, but in one weird situation, you're sort of insulating yourself from community, and you're also allowing that intellectual pursuit to be like the only thing. So you're only basically engaging your brain, enlarging your knowledge, and your knowledge is way outpacing your obedience. And actually, you probably don't need to go find a church that's giving you all the deep theology. You probably just need to learn how to apply basic theology before you get to all that deep stuff.
That's a word.
There's a danger in being just a thinker. However, there's a lot of people out there reading a great book, thinking about things that are deep, having conversations with people. And there's a lot of that theology that they're going to learn that's really, really, really useful and necessary.
Well, and to that point, I think any of these that we're talking about, if you just silo it and focus on being a naturalist or an intellectual, that can be a bad thing. These are all meant to like be restful. It's important to recognize those things and connect them to your faith, but it's not the thing.
No, totally. Yeah. There's a danger, right? On a spectrum.
So I think, if you're an intellectual, it means like embrace being a learner and then seeking out those things that you want to study, that you want to grow deeper in. Pick a book of the Bible to study deeply, find different study methods, gather a group of friends, whether it's, outside the context of a small group, create a small group, discuss that book or, talk about God and the Gospels, different things like that. Or just check out a Bible study. There's a million of them online. We have a ton of resources here at the church. You can always talk to any of us professional Christians on staff. Like,
if you're worried about that silo, teach someone, disciple someone, get a group of people to talk about it. Like, then you won't be a silo. You'll be engaging people and sharing that knowledge. Okay, last two.
Contemplatives. You worship God best through adoration. Love being into a good book, engaging in a thoughtful discussion. The suggestions here are grow in personal time with God, practice thinking rightly about God, spend time reflecting on and journaling about who God is and his characteristics, and learn what it means to take your faith from your head to your heart. These people I'm just picturing like a chair and a journal and somebody who wants to sit and like write and be with God for just like hours and hours.
Or spend time with one person. Not a group. This is a golden retriever through and through often. So that's a reference to the DISC personality profile, but a person who's relationship oriented, also not is an introvert. So even their relationship with God is an introverted deep relationship. Their relationships with others are often like individual relationships, not like
not in a big group.
And somebody who needs that time. They need the time, they need the quiet, they want to think deeply, go deeply.
I think this is also me a little bit, to think on things for a while before I like wrap my head around them. And I mean that's all things in life, but
you would choose coffee with one person.
Oh yeah,
100% all the time.
100% of the time to like chew through it verbally, process, wrap my mind around it, and then be like, oh yeah, okay, I know where to stand now.
I'm married to a golden retriever. I think it's funny that how people's you end up kind of having your relationships be different types of people connected because they're almost the other end of the spectrum from who you are. Last one.
This is the ascetics.
I'm glad you're saying that. Because I don't want to say it.
These people that need quiet
is not the same as aesthetics. It's ascetics. Okay.
You need quiet and solitude and simplicity to feel close to God. So, in some ways, kind of close to the Contemplatives, but different in the sense that you benefit from silence and you benefit from like a silent retreat away from your phone or from other external distractions.
Yeah, I think focus more on that simplicity
Mm-hmm.
because this is like my sister-in-law. She'll never listen to this podcast, neither my brother, but like my whole family makes fun of the idea that like when you open their cabinets, there's like they're completely empty. There's like a plate, a like one utensil.
She better not ever come over to our house.
There's like you're like, oh, do you have
she'd die.
a spatula? No, we don't have any spatulas. Why? Because she values simplicity.
Yeah.
Like her closet is like 5 things.
Yep.
And they're like spaced perfectly. And like their house has no extra stuff in it at all. Like my brother has to put things that he wants to keep like in a section of the garage that she won't see.
Yeah.
Like, she's very, and she, I mean, as far as like Christian faith, like that was a whole other conversation, but I think people who really appreciate simplicity and quiet and solitude, and, I think that's who we're talking about here.
Yep.
Yeah. This is my mother. She's talked about and is actually about to do it this spring. She wants to do a silent retreat for probably like a week, just her and her dog.
So knock yourself out.
As part of her like grieving process from losing my dad last year.
Yeah.
But also like to spend time with God. And I'm like, I could maybe do that for a day.
6 hours.
But like, it would be more distracting for me to be at a cabin with nothing.
Yeah. I would ruin it for everyone there.
Pastor Gary talked about this a few weeks ago, though, about the monk who wanted to go to the cabin in the woods for a month.
Yeah.
And how it like would take you a day or two to when you were sick.
You said Pastor Gary?
Nope, sorry, Pastor Randy.
Yes, sorry.
Sorry about that.
Yep. Freudian slip.
Pastor Randy.
We had a Pastor Gary here for a while. He was great.
Long time ago.
He's great.
But yeah, like, this, like, to go to a cabin in the woods that like doesn't have a TV, doesn't have, this just sounds so great to me. I just want it.
Yeah. Isn't there like some French monastery in France that like you can go there for like a week or two and there's no like TV, there's no nothing. They have you do chores.
Those exist all over the place. You can,
really?
Yeah, you can. There's
some big one in France that like a ton of like.
I'm trying to think when I went. I think it was when I lived in New Jersey. I went to a Catholic one where it was a silent place. Yeah. You were in a lot. Like there was times where you could talk quietly, like during dinner.
Yeah.
So because you had to communicate with people. The rest of the day it was all quiet.
But I don't want to be around anybody else.
Yeah. You weren't. It was so big that it almost felt like there was no one there.
I don't want to see other people.
Yeah. No, I get.
I want to be by myself.
Yeah.
But I know this is not everybody's thing.
No.
And and you can't make it everybody's things because it wouldn't be restful.
Yeah.
Like I could fly you out to a cabin in the woods and like leave you there, but it wouldn't be restful for you, and you wouldn't come back.
I've been looking at a Airbnb that's like north of Grand Marais. That is like on a lake, and it just faces the lake. It's a small little kind of cabiny deal. It's on someone's property.
I'm already on board.
It's got a sauna. It's quiet. It's got like skylights above the bed. Like it's got you sleep and you can see the water. Like it's beautiful.
I can smell the campfire already.
However, I'm going with Marty. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to go alone and I don't want to be quiet. Like, and I'm going to work during the day. I need to do something. Otherwise, I'm going to tear things apart. Like, I'm going to eat someone's shoes. Like, I'm going to be like a puppy who has too much energy. Right. So,
so I think the difference between like contemplatives and ascetics is that contemplatives, like, they just need to internalize and process and think. Ascetics need to have simplicity. They need to have quiet. Like
they almost gain energy by their surroundings.
Yeah. And so like some of the things that they can do is like there's a book called Following Jesus' Footsteps of Solitude, and so it's very like meditative on like thinking about Jesus and your Savior. There's a bunch of different like habits and different things you can do, but really it's talking about striving to simplify your life by removing extra activities. That's really what it's about.
Don't just remove stuff from your schedule.
And then just pursue pure and simple devotion time, whatever that looks like for you.
Well, I think that kind of puts a bow on the series, and I just wanted to make sure we landed on the idea that, like, when you do Sabbath, if you're incorporating worship time and restoration time, and rest time, that your worship time does not need to look like you singing hymns or listening to KTIS while you work in the garage. Like, if it's restoration time, it's bringing you joy. It's again, me and Miles can be working on Game Boys. We're working, but also we're just hanging out, relaxed.
But it's something that's filling your cup, opposed to something that you're having to pour your energy out into.
I'm getting something done. I'm not frustrated. I don't probably have a screen going.
Yeah.
We're just relaxed. We're just hanging out. We're chatting. Like, it's connection time. That can be considered work for somebody who might be frustrated and hating every minute of it. But we're just tinkering, fooling around, having a good time. I think the other, so that's rest time, but also rest time, taking a holy nap, making sure you're doing something, sitting and watching, hanging out, relaxing. And then, the worship time and finding the ways that you worship best.
And that you can connect with God.
It's really important. So, yeah.
Rest it up, people.
And the idea that this is way countercultural.
Mm-hmm.
You might have a really hard time jumping into a full Sabbath right away.
Yeah.
I would still recommend it, but it can be really very counterintuitive, very countercultural. It might take you a while to get into the rhythm. It might take you a while to be comfortable owning that rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I think one of the big takeaways for all of us should be our culture is working against us in this regard. And even like the things that culture is telling us that we should do to rest are not all that restful, and restorative.
Screaming at the television.
And we just gotta work, and we gotta change, to fight. We have to fight to restore these practices and balance and rest into our life. And it's super important. And this is one of those things, if you're not doing it, what kind of bleeds over into almost every aspect of your life. And it can be very detrimental. It can be detrimental to your relationships, to loved ones, to family, to your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health. And it can be detrimental to your career and to your work.
If you don't think you need this in your life, I would recommend first going back and listening to the first podcast in this, or the first sermon in this series, but also picking up the book Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer, because I think it will help you see that you are missing something.
Yeah.
So,
or call us and come have lunch.
It's a super easy book to read and an even easier book to listen to. So if you're interested, go for it.
Yeah. Well, guys, have a great week. And we will be back next week talking about this Sunday's message and a new sermon series and all things wonderful. So, as always, we invite your comments and questions. And so it's probably a little late to drop those in the chat if you're watching us right now live, but you can always email us at office@pursuitcommunity.church. You can talk to us, staff, individually. You can catch us on the day. There's a ton of ways to communicate with us. So love you guys, and have a great week.
See you later.
Awesome. See ya. Hey, bye.